Leo's insights are presented to challenge, inform, and encourage you in your quest to break free from school-based approaches to education. Building upon a foundation of unschooling, we sincerely hope these insights help you to consider how education can be truly unlimited.
History clearly shows that home education has not really been in danger or threatened in this province. From the government's perspective, the biggest issue has actually been how to best deal with this educational option, but never how to eliminate it. Indeed, although the government of Alberta had to eventually reduce and allocate its distribution of funding, it was never refused for the home educated students of this province. This shows at least some evidence of support, even though some see funding more as a government buying access for greater influence than a help. To be sure, home education has its enemies, in particular the Alberta Teachers Association, that advances home education as inferior to public education when it likely seen as robbing them of dues paying members. I believe the greatest threat has always been from the inside, not from the government or the ATA, who could only complain. There's always been opposition from within the church and religious agencies that have succumbed to the notion of government having greater authority over children than parents. Extended family members can and do come against home educators, but this too is a result of believing that only government knows what children require in education. However, I believe the greatest enemy of home education, aside from ignorance respecting the true nature of home education, is the avarice or greed associated with the funding of home education and the consequent monetization of students. The passing of the School Act in 1988 no doubt provided opportunity for the home educating to find a more friendly, if willing, non-resident school board with which to register. It also opened the gate for the creation of an industry that over time has come to include public, separate, and private schools, not to mention third-party agencies specializing in the delivery of home education. Unfortunately, like every other industry, the focus has pretty well been the procurement of money involving the engagement of many a questionable activity in its pursuit. With the passage of time, the growing home education population, and the corresponding expansion of the industry, AHEA increasingly found itself having to adapt rather than lead. After all, the industry was a direct consequence of the creation of the willing non-resident boards that AHEA was involved with and the continued funding of home education. AHEA began to shrink in importance to eventually see its main function as that of providing a yearly convention. Aside from a few takeover attempts by various factions, including secular and otherwise opposing groups, blended programmers, and various boards and providers, he was able to occasionally make a pitch for home education, but it largely focused on its own survival. With time, AHEA lost its purpose and direction. It allowed home education providers into the exhibit hall of the convention who had no business being there, had their own rules been followed. It became increasingly clear that it had morphed from its original mandate of representing the home education community to that of serving the industry. Eventually, it came to be dominated, if not completely manipulated, by one particular home education provider with increasing conflicts of interest. While ostensibly representing the home education community at the behest of the controlling provider, AHEA clearly demonstrated it had lost its way when it offered the NDP Minister of Education a proposal for the evaluation of all the province's home educated students, along with the voluntary cooperation of that particularly controlling provider. This was done without consulting the members, AHEA having simply assumed a superior knowledge of what home educators needed, which most certainly was not a provincial home education evaluation system. Thankfully, and through God's grace and protection, this suggestion was not accepted. There are two things required to fully comprehend what is going on today. One must come to understand who has authority in education and how funding has had an overall negative impact. Please understand that the greatest enemies of home education play on these two things, both of which puts the ultimate control into the hands of the government. While AHEA played the role of negotiator, does it have the ultimate goal of parental authority and freedom at heart? Or did the optics take precedent?
We trust you were blessed by today's presentation. For more helpful information to guide you in your home education journey, please visit educationunlimited.ca and leogaumont.com. Be sure to like us and share us on Facebook.